Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the show. Today, I have with me Natalia Connolly. She is the VP of Data Science at Infinite Acres. And we're talking about the use of data science in modern agriculture, which is super exciting, really exciting new area where AgTech is the name of the game. And Natalia is well versed in both agriculture and the use of technology and data science in it. So I really can't wait for this conversation. Natalia, welcome along to the show.
Thanks so much for having me.
Great. So let's get going with a few sort of introductions to you, to agriculture, to AgTech, all those sorts of things. But let's start with you. So a little introduction to who you are, please.
Yeah, no, definitely. So I am Natalia Connolly. I am the VP of Data Science at Infinite Acres, as you mentioned. So I actually started out very, very far from agriculture. My background is in high energy physics, experimental high energy physics. I completed my PhD at Stanford Linear Accelerator Center. I did my postdoc at Berkeley in astrophysics. So as you can tell, very different from agriculture. And then once I left academia, I led data science teams in many diverse industries, from e-commerce to fintech to now AgTech, and joined this company about 2.5 years ago, and it's been a fantastic, fun ride ever since.
Amazing. And I mean, what a background. I'm not even sure I know what all those things that you did in education are, but they do sound impressive. And I know, joking aside, I know they put you in good stead for things like data science, whilst not necessarily agriculture. But have you found that you can replicate or transfer learnings from those different, from your education into the different industries you've been into, or is it kind of almost start from scratch each time and relearn how you do the things that you need to do in your industry?
Oh, goodness, no. You can absolutely apply what you've learned as a physicist and then throughout all these diverse industries. It's very enriching, really, to be able to bring that background and that knowledge from different industries to your new adventure, so to speak. I mean, data is data, and the techniques that we use in data science, they're the same techniques. It's just the domain is different.
Yeah. Cool. Talk to me about Infinite Acres then, the business that you're at, because I think it's a really interesting space, and it'll be good to understand, that space that you're in and why some of the things that you guys are doing are a big deal.
Oh my goodness, yes, absolutely. So vertical agriculture, I think, is a huge, huge deal, because I do believe firmly that it might well be the answer as to how we're going to feed the world, where food production is increasingly strained, by things like water shortages and climate change and now supply chain disruptions and all of that. But let me step back for a second, because not everybody might be familiar with what I mean by vertical agriculture. So what is that?
Yeah.
Well, so basically, in a nutshell, what we do is we grow crops inside a building where the crops are basically stacked vertically, so layers upon layers upon layers of crops. So the vertical in vertical agriculture refers to this geometrical arrangement of crops,
Right.
And so that in itself is already quite different from how we grow things traditionally, in open field agriculture. And if you think about it, it's a highly efficient use of space, right? Because you can stack things on top of one another. And so just to give you an example, in our flagship facility here in Hamilton, Ohio, we can grow more than 300 times as much food per square foot than in your traditional open field farm. So that's really pretty amazing. So that's where the names of our companies come from. So 80 Acres and this subsidiary, Infinite Acres.
Okay.
That's in reference to this highly efficient use of space. It might be a little bit, confusing, but that's where it comes from.
Well, it's I mean, we've been doing it with office space, with living space. We've built tower blocks so that offices are on 80 floors rather than one big open plan floor forever. So it kind of makes sense. And is it technology that's allowed that to happen, or is it just we haven't had the idea for it? I mean, it's been around for a little while, right? But it's sort of increasing in prevalence now. So what's enabled the ability to have this kind of stacked agriculture now than previous years?
Well, yeah, so that's just it, right? I mean, yeah, the idea has been around forever, but we've only been able to do it now, just in the past several years, really. And we couldn't have done it without recent advances in technology, from lighting to irrigation to climate control, to where my team comes in, which is artificial intelligence, right? And the reason why we need all those things is because, so we're growing things indoors, right? And so your crops are very, very highly isolated from the outside environment. And the environment inside is very precise precisely tuned to what your particular crop might need in terms of temperature, humidity, all that kind of stuff, right?
Right.
And so you can't possibly have that level of control and monitoring, which is just as important, without all these advances in technology. And
So
so that,
the game changer here is tech, which now I know the industry calls AgTech, agricultural tech. Where does that play a part then? I know you sort of mentioned some points there about climate control and lighting and other things. So where does it really kind of come into its own in this vertical agriculture space?
Yeah, so it's really throughout. I mean, so the climate that's inside the grow zones, everything about it is just so precisely tuned to a particular crop you're trying to grow and a particular outcome you're trying to achieve, be it, nutritional qualities or flavor profiles or whatever. So you need to be able to control all of that from the lighting. So the particular spectrum of light is very, very important to irrigation, how often you irrigate, how you irrigate, to just about everything, your temperature, your humidity, your CO2 levels, all of that stuff needs to be very precisely tuned, controlled, and monitored.
Right. Right. And of course, technology plays a part there. And one part of technology, although extends beyond the sort of definition of tech, I guess, is data science and the role of data within that. So, you mentioned about the big sort of game changers that's happened that's allowed sort of vertical and stacking agriculture to happen. Well, talk to me a little bit about then the kind of data science side of this. Where does data play a part? Where does data science play a part? And then I'd like to get into some of the uses and how it supports a little bit more.
Yep, absolutely. So data science truly rules our industry, and so just about everywhere you look, from R&D to production to customer demand tracking, we've got data science everywhere.
Right.
But many industries will say the same thing, right? We've got data science everywhere. We're forecasting supply, we're forecasting demand, we're doing data science. So how are we different, right? So why is it so particularly crucial for our industry? Well, to answer that question, let's step back again for a second and consider what it is that data science really is. I'm simplifying it a little bit, but sort of in a nutshell, it's an attempt to really formalize certain patterns that are observed frequently enough in your data sets that a mathematical predictive model can be developed. Right. And if you think about open field agriculture, your traditional farming, right? For all of the world's attempts to standardize open field agriculture, it's very difficult to do. There's always some kind of outside variable that's going to play a role. Things like rain, droughts, heat, cold, whatever. Even advanced fertilizers don't work, and pesticides don't work exactly like they're supposed to every single time, right? And so no harvest in an open field is exactly the same as the one before. Whereas in our farms, it's always the same thing. I mean, the environment is so precisely controlled that you know exactly what you're getting. Every day is almost exactly the one like the one before. And so you finally have the quality and the quantity of the data sufficient that you can really start developing some really interesting mathematical models that really go into the details of how your crops are evolving in this type of an environment, what kind of outcome you can predict in terms of harvest, in terms of quality, all that sort of thing, right? And so you can also use that volume of data, quality of data, to potentially figure out how to alter the growing recipe to produce even better crops, more crops, crops that satisfy some particular customer demand. So data science is 100% crucial for this endeavor.
Yeah, it does sound it, and I think you mentioned there about quality and repeatable quality, right? And that's a game changer for supermarkets and anyone selling fruit and veg and that sort of thing, because you want to have good customer feedback. And so is it I guess what's the most important thing here? Is the outcome about quality, or is the outcome about volume, or is it I guess some combination of the both? But do you put some more attention in one area or another, or indeed a different metric?
All of the above, to be honest. So I like to think of our data and its usage as one giant loop, really, with a feedback mechanism, right? So basically, we start from our seeds, and it goes all the way in that loop to where the customers actually get to enjoy our products, right? Now we get feedback from the customers and from the market as to what it demands. It goes all the way back to the seed, to our supply and inventory planning, right? And so basically, of course, we're trying to produce as much as possible. We got to feed the world, and we got to make our stuff affordable. There's no question there. So we got to produce the volume that's sufficient for that.
Yeah.
But also we take into account what it is that our customers want, right? And of course, they want high quality products. They want maybe products with specific, nutritional profiles, so vitamins, all that kind of stuff. That's important too. So we take into account all of that feedback from the market, from our customers, and it all goes back into our planning, which is done with data science.
Yeah, a nice feedback loop is always nice and helpful with a model. You got to keep learning.
Yes, 100%.
It may sound like a strange question, but how I suppose, yes, it's natural, but it's quite an artificial environment, right? You're creating an environment for this food to be created in, and I know outside fields and traditional farms, you have some artificial components that have helped us to extend crop life and quality and all those sorts of things. But how artificial is it compared to normal, traditional farming and agriculture?
Well, that's a great question. So, of course, all of our food is grown naturally in terms of there's no pesticides of any kind, there's no chemicals, right? But it's an interesting question. So, and I like to think about it in terms of how the customers really reacted to our products, right?
Yeah.
So, about a year ago, we opened this facility they referred to, our flagship facility in Hamilton, right? And it was a very large, very sophisticated farm, and we increased our food production by more than 10 times at the time. But, if somebody did a survey at the time and asked basically the local consumers, are you ready to eat a salad that was grown indoors under pink lights, LED lights, and vertically stacked layers? I'm really not sure what the answer distribution would have been, but I seriously doubt it would have been a resounding yes, I'm 100% ready.
Yeah.
But several months after that, we were fully at capacity, and now we honestly can't keep up with the demand.
Right.
And so we're opening 2 new very large facilities that will increase our production even further by orders of magnitude.
And I presume it's there's a kind of plateau, I guess, of production from one facility, because obviously you can keep stacking on top, and I guess you can become more efficient with the stacking that you've got and the throughput and the production that you have through things like data science. But I guess there's a plateau, is there, where actually you just need more physical space. But in theory, you could keep going higher.
In principle, you can. And also, you can always do better, honestly. You can do better in terms of being more sustainable, for instance. You can do better in terms of wasting less, producing more, that sort of thing. And we're making concerted efforts to improve our sustainability and to really improve our production from that standpoint. But ultimately, you do hit a physical limit, and you gotta expand, you gotta create more farms out there. And that's the beauty of this model, is that you can stand up a farm just about anywhere in the world. All you need is a bunch of space, or maybe even an existing building, and you can convert it to a farm.
I was going to say, with the way the world's going, there's plenty of office space in central cities to start farming, and then you're a bit closer to the restaurants and the last mile of delivery as well. So you're sort of a bit closer, which I guess also, as you mentioned, sustainability. I was going to come to this, but also helps with distribution and reducing the mileage that stuff travels, and therefore quality as well at the end of it.
Yeah, I mean, that's just it, right? I mean, you really hit the nail on the head here. It's absolutely crucial. I mean, every year we save something like 500,000 miles of trucking, just because we grow the produce where people pretty much consume it right there,
Yeah.
So you can build it locally, you can build it just about anywhere, and your customers will have access to the produce that was harvested, like 24 to 48 hours ago, right? It's as fresh as possible. And you don't need to transport it. You don't need to preserve it and all that kind of stuff for, long distances for a long time. So it's beautiful.
No, very nice. Let's go back to data for a sec, jumping around a bit, but really interested in the data that you capture, the data that then forms part of the models. And also any external variables, external data that gets integrated and captured and used within your structures. Because I think there's some, certainly for the audience, there'll be some really interesting data sets that they'd never possibly touch, and there'll be some stuff that actually is like, weather, for example, may or may not form a part because you're obviously indoors, but there may be something there that you use to help shape what you do indoors to mimic what would happen outdoors and that sort of thing. So really interested in the data and how it plays a part, what you get, where you get it from. Can you talk to that for a little while?
Yeah, absolutely. So in our business, data is absolutely king. There's just no doubt there, right? And so the growing process is probably the most obvious example of that because our environment is so tightly controlled and so precisely tuned. It's not supposed to be disrupted by humans going in and out all the
Mm,
time. And therefore, it's crucial to have this remote monitoring system. So we have industrial strength, sensors and cameras basically throughout our facilities. And we have this constant stream of data that's coming, throughout all of our facilities. And
mm,
then it's up to my team really to catch all that data, to integrate it. So we use a modern cloud-based architecture to capture all the data, synthesize it together, and basically build a story as to what a given crop is experiencing at any given time, so that we can track it all the way to the harvest, and then we can
right.
correlate it back to how it grew, to its, how much we harvested, what kind of quality it was, and all that kind of stuff, right? But basically, my team of data scientists constantly monitors that stream of sensor data and the stream of camera data. So, and we apply sophisticated machine learning and computer vision algorithms to catch any anomalies, right?
Right.
So, for instance, if something gets out of spec, the temperature becomes too high, or the humidity becomes too low, or the computer vision algorithm catches, as the beginnings of a tip burn issue, where the leaves are becoming browner, more brown than they're supposed to be, right?
Mm,
Immediately we catch it. Immediately we can mitigate it. And so data is 100% crucial for ensuring the compliance with the recipe that our R&D, our crop specialists established,
right.
but also really for understanding how to better tune our environment so as to produce, better crops, more crops, all that kind of stuff. So again, you see this feedback mechanism, this sort of data loop in action.
And on this point I made about, oh, by the way, I want some of that tech for my garden because I'm constantly losing crops to it being too brown or too hot or too cold. But no, just how important is how crops grow in traditional, in traditional agriculture. So
Yeah.
have you had to take, as the industry, have you had to take kind of how crops normally grow and apply that indoors, or is this sort of like almost rip it up and ground up? This is new ways of growing crops. Are you essentially mimicking outside, or have you got a whole brand new way of creating life, of creating crop?
No. I mean, AgTech is still agriculture first, right? I mean,
Yeah,
we're growing
right.
basically the same crops that have been feeding the human race for thousands of years. And so, of course, um, plant biology comes first. It would have been silly if it weren't the case, right? I mean, all
Yeah.
that body of knowledge that's been developed, it would have been silly not to use it. And so we have a number of crop specialists that many of them come from your traditional agriculture backgrounds, right? And they fully understand the crops that they're responsible for. They know how to grow them. They know their biology. They understand how to tune their environment so as to produce a desired outcome.
Mm.
It's just that the way we grow our plants is different, right? And this is
Yeah.
where all of that technology comes through, right? But really, the biology of plants, the agriculture component of it that's been around for thousands of years, that's still the same. We're just building on top of that knowledge, formalizing that knowledge with data science, with technology. But really, it's this incredible foundation that we're standing upon that's allowing us to do it and take it to the next level.
Amazing, brilliant. Further down the supply chain, then, so you've got the growing of the crops, but of course you've got the understanding of demand. You've got the distribution of the end product. You've got
Indeed.
the management of customers and forecasts and pricing. Does data science play a part in those components? And can you give a few examples if you do play a part there?
Oh, a huge part of our work is that absolutely we have to understand what the market is asking for. We have to understand our customers. We're trying to serve our customers who are very local, so we need to understand the customers at that level, what the local markets really want, right?
Right.
And so we do have forecasting models in terms of demand. We do have pricing models in terms of again this market trends and all of that. And data science plays a huge part in all of that. So yeah, there's absolutely no question. Yeah.
How ready are we for all this stuff? How ready is the world? And is there certain countries that are embracing this more than others, i.e., because that's where you're focused your efforts on, or because that's where the demand's coming from?
Yeah, that's a great question. And again, I just want to go back to the fact that when we started this whole thing, even here in Hamilton, Ohio, right, we did not know that the customer response would be so overwhelming. And people may not have been ready for it then because they probably didn't really know what we're talking about necessarily. And yet now we just can't keep up with the demand. But we can definitely go deeper into this question. I think that's what you're asking. I mean, so in principle, yes, we can stand up a farm just about anywhere in the world. It can be someplace really cold. It can be someplace really hot. It can be just about anywhere in the world. But in reality, the world may not be 100% ready for this everywhere, right? Just because the existing infrastructure may not be quite there yet.
Right.
But I do believe this is sort of what a revolutionary startup does. I mean, this is what startups do. We kind of push the boundaries of what's possible. We show the world what's possible. So at some level, we just got to start somewhere. We just got to some degree, we just got to do it. We just got to make it possible and show the world, hey, this is what this is all about. And people who may not have seen it before or understood what this was all about, once they see it in action, once they kind of taste the product and see how it all works and how much it contributes to the local economy, it's a game changer.
Yeah.
So we just got to do it. Just go over.
No, I like the ambition. I mean, in some ways, when you say are people ready for it, or I ask the question, are people ready for it? In some ways, the end product is, and I'm sorry, I don't know what your products are, but an apple or a cucumber or a tomato, right? You're getting a product that you can eat that ends up on shelves. So in some ways, and we don't. I mean, we do want to know that where our foods come from has come from ethical places and farmed in the right way, and people are looked after, and its supply chain's nice and clean. So we want to know from that perspective. But the specific kind of farming methodology used, or the agriculture methodology used, is not something that the normal punter, as I called it in the UK, tends to want to know about. So in some ways, when are you ready for it, kind of seems almost a perverse question because we're just getting a tomato at the end of the chain. But I guess your customer is really, supermarkets and manufacturers of goods, and they need to be confident that the production process is sustainable, that you can get as much product as they need, and those sorts of things. Absolutely. Is that what you mean by the infrastructure and readiness?
Well, it's that plus just the physical infrastructure. So the availability of electricity, for example, the availability of water. But that's the thing. I mean, we are so sustainable. We use a lot less water than your traditional farms, for example, 95 to 97% less, right?
Oh, wow.
We're on.
Why is that? Why is that? Sorry to cut in. Why is that, Natalia? Is that because of the efficiency of use of the water?
Yeah, and we also just recirculate the water, clean it and recirculate, enrich it with whatever the plants need. But definitely we reuse our data quite efficiently. And so that's sort of part of our sustainability promise, our sustainability impact, really, right? But also, in terms of electricity, we run on 100% renewable energy here in Hamilton. All of our facilities that we're planning will be run on renewable energy. And when we go out to the world, this is our this is what we bring with us. We want to be sustainable. We want to be environmentally friendly. We want to run on sustainable energy throughout, right? And so we almost kind of bring that infrastructure with us, almost that sort of message, that sort of impact. And so there's a lot of good stuff that's happening that's not necessarily just related to the crops themselves.
Yeah, quite. And I think that's people are more and more looking for sustainable options. But I guess as long as it's better than the traditional methods, and I guess, new entrant, you kind of have to not just beat it a little bit, you have to beat it a lot. Like your water usage stats are great there. What else then from a sustainability perspective? Actually, it's quite an interesting area. Are you sort of investing in and sort of beating what is traditional?
Yeah. So 100%. I mean, sustainability is crucial for what we do. It's a giant part of what we sort of focus on every day. And this is, again, where the data comes in. And you can sort of tell, you can probably tell I'm sort of biased. I love data. I love playing with data. I love just understanding our data. And so the fact that we collect so much of it, I feel is crucial for more things than once. And sustainability is one important aspect of it. I mean, you can't improve unless you measure and monitor, right? And so this is where the volume of data that we collect on a daily basis comes in. Things like food waste. If you monitor it, if you understand where it's happening, how much of it is happening where, you can improve it. The water usage, even though it's already great, we can always do better. Fertilizer use, electricity consumption, all of that stuff is monitored very, very precisely. And that means we know exactly how to improve. We know exactly how to get better and even, and improve our sustainability imprint that way, right? And already we have some fantastic numbers that we can quote, and we're very, very proud of it. So things like, for example, we're saving 500,000 pounds of food waste that we avoid on a yearly basis. We save 70 million gallons of water yearly. We save a lot of miles of trucking on a yearly basis, again, just because we're local. So all of these metrics, we're super proud of them, but we're always trying to do better, and we do it with data.
Yeah, brilliant. Looking forward then, so I kind of, early days, relative, really exciting opportunity. I can see lots of growth potential because you can locate wherever you want, so you can sit wherever you need to be, and obviously get product and to the end customer quite quickly. But where does this kind of go next in terms of the industry and vertical agriculture?
Yeah, great question. I do think, a decade ago, all of this would have been just a fantasy, right? Today it's becoming much more mainstream, and maybe several years from now, it will be all completely mainstream. It definitely seems to be headed that way. And that's because, again, with all of this work we're doing in terms of sustainability, we're trying to improve how we grow our plants. We're trying to waste less. That means we're going to produce more and make it more affordable, which means we'll be able to compete more, on the market with the more traditional agriculture more and more, right? But also, I think people will see the other aspects of what it is that we're doing in terms of, the social impacts of vertical agriculture go way beyond just offering this fresh, sustainable produce year round. I mean, and it's even way, it's even more than just sustainability, even though that's a huge part of it, right? It's also things like generating new jobs, local jobs, well-paying jobs, benefit jobs that are mission driven. There's a lot of opportunities for advancements, for learning, new technologies and stuff like that. So that in itself has a huge and positive impact on local communities where we are. And then just basically, honestly, just creating a better world in so many ways, And so I feel like this is the way of the future.
Well, I'm a huge fan of finding new ways of using technology to advance us as humans and do it in a sustainable way and in a way that impacts society positively. So no, I'm bought in, hook, line, and sinker, as they say.
Fantastic.
No, so that's really good, and I also love obviously that data science is playing a huge part in the work that you're doing. And in really interesting ways, and not on one specific thing, but across what you do.
Yep. Fully embedded in the business. We're very much data driven, data science driven. And we're not just saying that, it's absolutely crucial.
Brilliant. Well, I think it's been a fascinating conversation, and I thirst for learning more about agriculture in general and technologies there, but particularly this vertical agriculture. And so you've inspired me to do that. So I appreciate that, Natalia.
Thank you so much. I'm very happy about that.
No problem. And thanks very much for coming on the show. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
And thanks everyone for listening. We hope you enjoyed that, and we'll catch you again soon.